Hello, everybody. Here we are back on the block, this time with an amazing interview with Mr. John Ottman, a great composer, editor, and João Batista Melo here with me sharing this stage, let's say stage, virtual stage. And first of all, I would like to welcome both of you, John, João. You have the same name, each one in one language. John, some words for our audience, please.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Like I said, I wished I could be there in person someday when we all can mingle together. So I'm very excited that I've been chosen to talk about film music, and here we are.
Yeah. Our pleasure. Our pleasure. João.
Welcome, John. Thanks for participating in our festival, and we are very pleasured with your presence because you are one of the main composers in international movies today. Welcome.
Thank you.
Well, and for some of you that maybe don't know the career of the John's career, I would like to read you some very short CV. He is very short. How say that? How say that in English? Not CV. CV. Resume. A small resume. Well, he's a composer and editor. John Ottman won the Oscar for Best Editing for the film Bohemian Rhapsody. That's not a small thing, guys. Based on the life of Freddie Mercury. He's the composer of the soundtrack of dozens of films such as Fantastic Four, X-Men 2, X-Men Days of Future Past, X-Men Apocalypse, Operation Valkyrie. Valkyrie or Valkyrie? How would you say that, John? Valkyrie or
Valkyrie? We say Valkyrie, but I think other people say Valkyrie, so I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Os Suspeitos, em português, and Usual Suspects, Jack, o Caçador de Gigantes, Jack the Giant Slayer, and Superman the Return, several of which he was also responsible for editing. Among other awards, he was nominated for an Emmy Award for the music from the series Fantasy Island. A clarinetist since childhood, I didn't know that. That's a surprise for me too. He dedicated himself in adolescence to producing small films in his parents' garage. Graduated in cinema and at the prestigious USC Film School, he also worked as a director and producer. As he's a very busy guy, as you can see. Okay, my friends.
John,
with questions or considerations or?
John, could you tell how you started your relationship with movies?
Oh, well, I always say you learn by doing. So I just started making short films as a kid, and many of them were very extravagant for what they were. I had sometimes 20 or 30 extras who are my neighbor, from friends and family from my neighborhood and so forth, and would build big sets in my parents' garage and my other friends, their garage as well. And anyway, so by the time I went to USC, I already had so many movies. I was relatively experienced, and long story short, I met Brian Singer at film school, and we did a short film together, and then that got noticed, and then we put together a low budget feature film called Public Access that nobody saw, but it won the Sundance Film Festival. And
Wow.
it was on that movie where I was both I was the editor, and then when the composer wasn't really working out in terms of the score, I ended up writing the score to the film. So that was the first time that I think someone had really edited and scored a feature film, and then it won. And so then when we put The Usual Suspects together, I said, I only want to write the score. I don't want to edit. And then Brian said, you're never going to edit a film for me. I mean, you're never going to score a film for me unless you're the editor. And so this is how the blackmail
Blackmail.
began. And this is why I ended up doing both tasks on all of his movies reluctantly, because I don't think most people know what a film editor does, especially a film editor who is one of the, let's just say, some directors are around a lot and some directors aren't. So for those who, let's just say, entrust their editor, the editor has a tremendous job of managing the entire movie, whether it's pre-visualizations, visual effects, obviously telling the story, the politics with the test screenings and the studio, being a diplomat, and then on top of that, and all those moving parts, having to write a huge score for the movie. So this was my cross to bear, as they say. But looking at it the other way, I had complete control on what I was doing, because the director just basically let me do what I wanted. He liked to walk into a room and be surprised by what I've created. So it was I guess his excuse for being lazy was that he wanted to maintain his objectivity. So by being removed from his own movie, he could be objective when he came in and saw what I had created. So, but it gave me a lot of control, and I'm very lucky in the respect that no one was really breathing over my shoulder a lot, and so that was great for me.
Fantastic, fantastic. May I ask something else about this editor feature of yours, and how you edit? You use your own music, you use temp music, you don't use music. How you edit in general?
Well, people are usually surprised to know that when I put a film together, edit a film, I don't put any music in when I do the first cut of the film, because I want to see if the film is working by itself.
By itself. Okay.
Music obviously can be a problem solver. I think the music is obviously the soul of a movie. But if, as the editor and the filmmaker, if I can sit back for 2 hours and my movie is working without music, then I know it's going to be a really great movie. And then after the movie is put together, then I put the temporary music in. And that way it makes for a much better temporary score, because you're actually now applying music and telling a story after the story's already been constructed. Because one of the mistakes that I think is made is that when you are cutting a film and putting music in right away, immediately, you are creating an immediate association, and any music you put in right away is going to change the scene. You're going to think, oh, it's working so well, but when in reality, the music might be fooling you that the scene is actually working. And because I had so much to do on the film later, like write the score, I could not afford the time to discover later that a scene was not going to be working anymore, because I tricked myself 6 months ago by putting the music in too early. So that was me. But that's my philosophy on putting in temporary music on a film.
But it's
I'm sorry, one more thing. It also teaches you how to not be so dependent on the music and let the sound design tell the story as well, so that you're both working in tandem as opposed to on top of each other all the time.
That's a fantastic, in my humble opinion, this is a fantastic approach, because I think most of the composers have this kind of problem, to face this kind of problem. They send you an edit film with a lot of temp music, and you have to do something better than that, and more appropriated than that. And most of the guys who were working on the movie, they are attached
Right.
to that temp track a lot, and they have strong problems to leave the temp track away, and to accept they have already a resistance against the new music, isn't it? It's a
insecurity. All filmmakers understandably are insecure, and so, but I think the better composer is a storyteller and can talk to a filmmaker in their lingo, in their language, and not music language. And if composer can eloquently explain why the music should be different than what's in the movie, then I think the filmmakers will listen, because they're talking about story, they're talking about subtext that they want to bring out from under a dialogue scene or something. So then I think the filmmakers are more open to listen. But if you just say that doesn't work, I don't like that kind of music or whatever, then they're not going to listen to you, because you need a reason to tell them why it's not. And it's, I think composers, as they get more mature, are able to operate on that level, to be able to talk to the filmmakers about how they see the story. When you're first starting out, though, as a composer, you don't want to be fired, and so you end up kind of doing what they want. But as you get more of a name for yourself, you can then and more trust from filmmakers, then you can basically, I think, give your opinion more about why you think the score should be different.
That sounds good for me. It's very interesting when we achieve a point that we can add a different dimension on what you can just see on the scene. If you see the dog crossing the street, you see the guy kissing the girl, you don't need a music to explain that kind of thing.
Right.
But that dog can have a lot of different dimensions behind him that you can't.
The dog might be depressed.
Yes.
It has some sort of problem, and that's what the music's about. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. I always say, I get irritated when I write a score and, like a chase scene or something, and the sound of the car engine is so freaking loud. I'm like, well, is this story about the car, or is it about the characters who are in the car going somewhere? And so I'm scoring the characters in the action scene. And so sometimes there's not an objective storytelling in the final mix of the movie about what is this scene really about? Why does the car need to be so loud?
Fantastic. John, your consideration? João, your considerations, João? I call John.
Very confused. I am composer and I am director. Then I am very fascinated by your two professions in movies, and how the composer moves the editor, and how the editor influence the composer. You make soundtrack for movies that you don't edit. And you has edited movies like Bohemian Rhapsody for which you don't make the soundtrack. But there are movies that you did the two things. How the experience of the composer influence the editor and
Vice
uh,
versa.
the other way?
Let's very diplomatically. um, you know, I have strong opinions, and so it's hard for me to stay quiet when I didn't agree editorially with something that was going on, and I could never. It wasn't my place as the composer to tell the editor that I didn't agree with how the scene was edited, but I could use the music, my composing, as an excuse as to why perhaps
Yeah.
change the scene to let me accomplish my musical idea. So that was sort of my diplomatic way of getting maybe a scene changed editorially a little bit.
Good idea.
But to me, it's all about telling the story. I can, you know, there was an example. I can't give the film because of I just basically trashed the editor. But there was a chase sequence in a movie I was doing, and I really didn't understand thematically where what it was so confused. It was so confused, and I couldn't follow the story really. And so I struggled with the music because the music is trying to clarify and tell the story. And so I worked, and so I constantly tried to use that excuse as to I was, you know, how I was trying to identify what was going on musically by subtly, how should I say it? Giving hints to the editor that the scene wasn't clear. I didn't know what was happening. So, but there was also another film.
Was a chasing scene.
I'm sorry?
Was a chasing scene.
Yeah,
chasing
and he actually ended up changing some of it so that it made more sense for me to start to tell the story, you know. But you know, there's a movie I did where the temp score was just incessant. It never stopped, and it was super, like, you know, that constant typical thing we hear now, that the whole movie. And so, and I was watching the film and I'm thinking, you know, under all of this, there is a movie with a story, but I'm really having a hard time understanding the story because the music isn't telling a story at all. And so I was very fortunate that when I told Joel Silver, who was the producer of the film, who I had a good relationship with, when I told him this, he let me just basically take out the temp score and just sort of write scenes. And I was very lucky with Joel Silver, actually, because the films I was the editor on, I was the boss, so I could do any score I wanted to. But the films I was not an editor on, of course, I'm not the boss. But with Joel Silver, it was interesting because they would hire me early and just have me write music as they were cutting the film. So they would use that music, and so so I could go to bed at night and sleep easy, knowing what I wrote wasn't trying to rip anything off. It was just something that came out of my head. And so I really enjoyed working on all of those Joel Silver movies. They weren't great movies necessarily, but I really felt like I could just do my thing and not have to compete with a temp score, you know.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I have the strong impression that the music, it has a much bigger compromise with timing than the scenes, than the image. And I think it sounds to me, I'm not an editor, that if you make a good music for scene and you give this music for an editor to cut on that music that was already done for that scene, it sounds, I have this idea that could be much easier for both sides, you know. What do you think about?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult in today's movies that move so much faster. You know, it's hard in the past, you know, with like Dances with Wolves or Out of Africa, you could write a full theme, and you're going to have the beginning, middle, and end of the theme in the movie. So today there's no time. I mean, you start the scene, the theme, and then it basically the scene changes, and you can't really keep the theme going. But that, but I think I know I'm crossing into a different subject now. But I think about themes. I think what's happened is though we have a term. The baby has been thrown out with the bathwater in terms of because movies move fast. Well, they think now, therefore there shouldn't be themes, you know, or if you do a theme, there's no time to put it in the movie, which isn't true, because I always say if you write the full theme to the movie, even though you can't fit it in mostly, it's the well that you draw from when you're writing the movie, and it's going to be a stronger score. So for every movie I do, I always write an overture to the movie. I write out my themes. And for instance, with not a great movie, but for X-Men Apocalypse, I wasn't just going to use my X-Men theme because this was going to be a movie about this guy, Apocalypse. So I wrote this full theme for Apocalypse, and that way I could draw from that theme when I wrote the score, and it makes a stronger story I'm telling. And then the fringe benefit of that is that I get to throw that on the end titles. There's a full piece of music that is my full Apocalypse theme, you know. And I think because I grew up with John Williams and James Horner and Jerry Goldsmith. Jerry Goldsmith was my idol. They would always write out full themes for their films, you know. And I just can't imagine just jumping into a film and just starting to go without any sort of thematic idea first. I would be lost. I wouldn't know where I was going, you know.
Yeah, because to guys like you and for me too, we see the music as another character of the movie.
Yeah, like I said, the soul.
Yes, the soul, and it has a theme, it has a personality, it has something. But as you said before too, and that impacts me a lot. Sometimes the musician, the composer is called to fix problems with the music, not to help to tell the story or to add another dimension, just to fix problems. That's a very unfair use of the music in a movie, isn't it?
Yeah, and I always say, I mean, it's like every it depends on the film. Every film score can't be lyrical, but in the past, I think more than today, you could take the music off of the movie and you can hear a story being told by the composer.
Sure.
Today, when all the music is I don't hear a story being told. I hear music that's simply there for function, period. It's just surface level. And I see it time and time again where opportunities to bring out the subtext of what a scene really is are lost because the music is just simply there for energy.
For energy, yes, to impose a rhythm or to reinforce something that it's already there. That's a pity. But anyway, modern times. And but you know that film, we were talking about that film, The Arrival, where we were talking about Bruce Broughton, and it was interesting because Johan Johansson, he made a score with no memorable themes or something like that, but it worked so well.
Yeah, I mean, every movie's different. I think that's an exception, but like I always say, I mean, okay, I'll try to talk slower. My other soapbox issue, as we say, is when I talk to composers who are very classically trained and they're very rigid. And I say as a filmmaker to them, look, if if that makes the scene happen better than some musical approach, that's what you should, that's brilliant then. Or all of our music isn't necessarily musical away from the movie because we're servicing a movie. So if it's weird or the time signature is bizarre, then who cares? Because you're trying to create an experience. And so with The Arrival, that was the approach that probably made that film successful, by being sparse, because less is always more.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know. And I also think that the stronger a movie, usually, the less score is required, because the movie on its own is so good. You'll often find that some of the best, the most fun film scores are for those films that suck. Okay, so like Apocalypse, right? It's one of my, I think, the really fun score I did, because I had to push it so far, because the film, the script, the story just wasn't as good as it could have been, and so you need the music to really be the one of the main characters, you know. And so it really depends on the movie, you know.
Great. That's great.
I think there's a movie that The Seventh Son is this movie that Marco Beltrami did, and it's a terrible film, but the music was so good, and I never heard Marco be so John Williams-esque and huge, and so it was this really great score on an awful film, you know. So sometimes it's really fun to score a bad movie, because you can just let yourself go, you know.
It's very interesting. João, have some good questions around.
Yes, I have more questions. You composed a beautiful score for Superman Returns. You mentioned John Williams, I remember this. And Superman Returns was a new version for a classic.
Right.
And a lot of sequels. Superman 2, Superman 3, Superman 4, and the soundtracks of all these movies were strongly based in the classic soundtrack of John Williams for the first Superman the movie. How was your experience composing the score for a character so linked with a classic theme of the soundtracks, like Superman of John Williams?
It was terrifying, because before we began the movie, I was getting emails or seeing people say, "Who the hell is this guy, and why is he scoring Superman Returns?" And so, people were upset before I even started. And I just had to finally say, you know what, I can't care what people are thinking. I have to just do what I think is right, because otherwise I would be crippled creatively. I would just sit there and be completely scared of what to do. So I just scored the film as John Ottman would score the film, using references to the John Williams main Superman theme. But what's interesting is Superman Returns is odd, because it's sort of like an interpersonal story about a guy who doesn't really fit in, and he didn't really have music that reflected that. So I created like a new theme for him that was sort of I called it his personal theme. And ironically, Lex Luthor never had a theme either in those films, and so I sort of did a theme for him. And so it was fun to add new material to it. And then also I knew John Williams' music so well, I didn't need to reference any of the music at all, because it's all in our head, right? And it's super easy to transcribe that just from your memory. You don't have to refer to any music at all. You can hear the orchestration so clearly. In one way, they're terrific, but they're very simple. And so it wasn't difficult for me just to sort of weave in, and once in a while I'll just go bum ba and then back into my music. So, yeah. So anyway, at the end of the day, I think I did a really sort of emotional score. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting that you made a new soundtrack and preserve the music of John Williams in the main title, in the end of the end title. but you put a new ideas, a new musical ideas in the movie. This is wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a lot of music. It's like, and I was cutting that movie too, and I think I ended up writing like, I don't know, almost 2 hours of music. And it's like,
Right.
if I look back, I'm like, how the hell did I do all that? But
2 hours of music.
it doesn't. Yeah, because I was writing a lot while I would go on a weekend and write some more music while I was cutting, just to have stuff ready. And you
Mhm.
always write too much, like more music than the movie requires.
Sure. Just in
Plus,
case.
the movie was way longer, of course, than the theatrical release. We
Mhm.
cut out a lot of scenes.
Ah, okay, okay. That's very, very, very interesting. And how did you call the theme of Lex Luthor? The revenge?
The Revenge. No. It's which is bum 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 ba bum bum ba da 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 dee da ba da dum. That's Lex Luthor's theme. So I just stumbled across that while I was doing the movie, and I'm like, oh my god, I discovered Lex Luthor's theme. So,
Cool, cool.
'cause that's one I had not laid out
Mm,
ahead of time. I didn't know what to do with Lex Luthor. And again, you can that's my mistake, because I'm very lucky that I stumbled across it in early enough while scoring the movie, so it's in the movie. But
mhm.
that's the danger in not writing themes ahead of time, because you might lose opportunities that you could have taken advantage of. So I had already written out Superman's personal theme, the love theme, all of these things I had written out before I scored the film. But Lex was just a last minute discovery.
And how does it work to you? The pressure. You are sure we are used to work on pressure, but it does it disturbing. For example, in my case, I like the pressure. It makes me work better in a way. I don't know why,
Uh,
but
well,
how you deal with that?
the days go by really fast, that's for sure. So, but there's no fingernails or skin left on my fingers. They bleed. I just like this constantly, and I
Wow.
don't eat. So I was telling you earlier that
Yeah,
I would often lose like 15, 20 pounds on those films, and
wow.
um, look, it was a not a pretty picture when I was finished. So, you know,
But it's not funny. I would say funny, but it's not funny. But it's interesting to see that anxiety, that those problems, that those questions, these all these questions, they are common in every composer, even the John Williams and the newbie starting right now. It's always the same problem. What am I going to do with this movie?
yeah. Yeah, it can be scary. You always think that the next film you're not going to be able to think of any ideas. You always that's the fear, that the next one's the one where the ideas won't come, but they always do somehow.
They always do somehow.
Yeah.
That's but well, guys. The good news is that you succeed. Everything will be all right. But the bad news is that the anxiety will never be gone. It's always be around. Oh, that's
Yeah,
incredible. We
and
have
that brings up another thing. It's like, I grew up in the world where John Williams and Jerry Goldsmith and James Horner were writing their own scores. They were the guys writing the scores. I'm sure with you guys as well. We call them now boutique composers, because they don't have a team of 20 people writing their scores. And there's now this new business model where a composer needs a team, because of so many revisions, and the movies being re-edited so many times and so forth. And it's a shame, because there's no way with a team of people, and I'm not saying not to have help. Everyone needs help, but the danger is your own personal stamp, your own thing that you're known for will be sort of diluted,
yes.
because now you have people trying to either sound like you or have their own approach, and you're trying to direct all of these people to I don't know. I think it ends up being sounds like more of a functional product than something coming from some one person's heart, you know. So I think that's the shame, that's the negative in having all the help.
Yeah.
but we do
Yeah.
need the help, you know.
Yes, guys like you, Alexander Desplat, too. They make their own music. Actually, you know, they don't have.
Yeah, I mean,
You.
once in a while you will need help, and for
Yeah.
someone who writes their own music, it's difficult because you're such a control freak
Yes.
that you drive them crazy. I mean, when I've had someone work for me, I've had them write the same piece of music 10 times, you know, because
Wow.
I'm very nice about it, but I you know, and I explain why, you know, and so forth. But because I am paranoid because I have created a brand, a sound. It's me, you know, and I'm so afraid that if I
Feel
get
that.
someone to write music for me, that I won't sound like myself anymore. You know.
Sure. And how you start your creative process? You start composing on clarinet or piano or singing or
It's basically a keyboard, you know. I mean, I obviously, well, like everybody else, I sit back and I watch the movie, and sometimes a theme will pop into my head, and sometimes it won't, and sometimes, like you said, it's like, oh my God, one of my, you know, it's fishing around the keyboard, and then you
yeah.
discover a riff, and you're like, oh, that's cool. I mean, with Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know what to do. There was no temp score on that movie. They just let me do my thing. And I just remember going, oh, 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 on the keyboard and realizing, what if, what happened is I had the electric keyboard setting on. And so it sounded very vintage to me. It sounded very old, like 60s. And then I realized, wait, this movie should have like a retro score on it, something that sounds like the 60s instead, even though it was a current day, present day movie. And that's how I had the eureka moment, like, holy shit,
The
I know
insight.
what
That was the insight.
right. And then I knew that that was going to be the personality of this movie, was going to be sort of
Interesting.
a throwback. Yeah.
And so it wasn't the music, was this the sound, the character of the sound that
Yeah.
brought this idea.
Exactly, and that happens to all of us, right? Where we open a sample, we hear a certain instrument, and suddenly that character inspires us. And for
Yeah.
me, it was the electric piano sound inspired me. Yeah.
Cool. We have some answers here. John, we have. Oh, João, você tem algumas aí também? You have some?
Yes, but if you have something, you could.
Oh, yeah. Antonio Teoli. He lives in LA. So he's a Brazilian composer. You know him?
Hello.
Antonio Teoli. He's a composer for a game composer.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and he's working for everybody, Nintendo and all the guys.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
A lot of work. He's completely nuts with work now. It's a fantastic guy, and he's asking, "Hi, John. I'm a fan, especially of your score of Astro Boy."
Oh, yeah.
You know, and if John could talk a little bit about the inspiration of the creation of Astro Boy's theme, it would be fantastic.
Well, I'll just say I was extremely happy to get onto that movie, because a lot of the films I do are dark or depressing. And I had been on Valkyrie for a year and a half, which was a very dark and sad and depressing movie, and a very sad and dark experience. Another story. So when I got Astro Boy, it was like a release of going into something so happy, you know, and positive. So that really just inspired me so much, and I fought very hard to get on that film. It's a tragedy the thing bombed. No one your best work, no one ever sees or hears. So I'm very thrilled that he brought up Astro Boy.
Yes.
But yes, I would. What inspired me? I mean, I just again, they let me sort of like do I'm probably similar to video games where they let me sort of come up with material before they really tempt a lot of stuff. And again, I don't know. Sometimes we don't know what is
Sometimes you don't
how
know.
we come up with the theme, but I just kept experimenting with the sound, and I for some reason kept recalling Jerry Goldsmith, an old movie he did about a family escaping in a balloon in the late 70s from East Germany, and that score kind of popped into my head, and so I didn't do that score, but it was I think the chords in
The
that
chords.
inspired me. So I think that was where I sort of was inspired somehow without even realizing it
Mhm,
until I
mhm.
analyzed it later. I
Yeah.
realized I think it's where it came from, the
Yes.
Astro Boy theme, you know.
Yeah.
And what I did, the other way I came up with the structure of the Astro Boy theme was to go to a scene where he was flying and
Mhm.
score that scene, and that sort of informed me of the structure of his theme, you know. But that is a movie where it's a quintessential example of, because it is an animated movie, of coming
Mhm.
up with a lot of themes and a lot of motifs beforehand. So I had laid out all these little mini themes, as we call them,
Mhm.
for many of the main characters. And so then when I went to write the score,
Mhm.
it was easier because I could just weave in all the stuff I had already written. Um, and but anyway, so it was a very, very satisfying um, thing to write, and also it was a, you know, I was talking about this earlier. It was a tremendous amount of music to write, but
Mhm.
because it was all going to be performed in London with a huge orchestra, it wasn't difficult for me because I didn't have to produce any of it. You know, so I could be sloppy with the piano, but it's a little off the click. But who cares? Because
Yeah.
it's going to be reperformed later, right? And
Sure, sure.
so I always say those big budget things where they give you a full orchestra, they should pay you less. They should pay more. They should pay more for those poor people that have to produce everything out of their studio,
It's
because
terrible.
it is such a time suck, as we
It is.
call it, and
Yeah.
you end up being, half of your job is being a sound engineer, and it takes away so much of your writing time.
Yeah.
So when I've gotten on those low budget synthesized scores, it's 10 times the work than writing the big scores. You know?
Yes, I can say that. I can say that. And happened to me just as fast case, and I did a mock-up for animation movie, and I did my best, but I was thinking, what stupid of my idea that we would record with an orchestra
Right.
after,
Yeah.
and the producer said no, but it sounds good as it
Oh,
is.
right. Yeah.
You know, I said no, but the orchestra. I said no, it's perfect. Like, and it
Yeah,
for
yeah.
him was great because he could, make it faster or slower as he wanted to re-edit the film and so on. And I
Yeah.
was so frustrated now, but it sounded okay. But I knew that could sound much better. But for the budget, they didn't
Yeah.
care.
And
They
that
didn't.
was an amazing experience because it was in London with the at Abbey Road in the big room, and you just
Wow.
it's like, it is truly a magical experience. You know, I mean, before I went there for the first score I did there, I was so certain mine would be the first score that sounded like crap, but it wasn't, because you could actually compose crap and it'll sound amazing
That's true. That's
because
true.
you're in that room. And it is truly, when I remember hearing the first bar of music, I think it was Astro Boy, and I was just like, holy fuck, it
I'm good.
sounds
I'm
so
good.
good. Yeah.
Well, another colleague of us here, Alberto Rosenblatt, asking, John, your compositions, your creation starts from the melody, or your think already vertically with like orchestra, or how does you come? I think the question would be, you come first with a team, or you think vertically like an orchestra, how it comes, or it varies, or
Well, it always varies depending on the film, but I always think thematically or lyrically
Mhm,
first.
mhm,
I need at least a motif to grab onto, you know,
mhm.
that inspires me. and even if it's say a dialogue scene, or you're kind of, it's one of those scenes where you're trying to fill time with the music, right?
Yeah.
It needs music, but you don't really want the music to be too present, so you're kind of noodling, right? And so even in a scene like that, I need some sort of riff. I need some sort of motif to sort of kind of play with. Otherwise, I don't know where I'm going. I just sort of like I'm blind without a motif, at least, or a theme. Yeah.
You're using motif like guiding yourself. You don't really care.
Right.
just to make. Yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting how we work inside here, and most of the time, most of the people really don't care or don't see, but anyway, it works, and it's there. We have more questions there.
I firmly believe there's a way, and again, every film is different. Not every film should be lyrical or thematic, but I firmly believe that even in the world of fast-moving movies and in short attention spans, that we can still have lyrical scores, or scores that have themes. Themes may not be as long as they used to be, but you can still do it. Don't just give up and say everything should be an ostinato, you know.
Okay. And just a personal question here. How you work? You work from the beginning of the film, or your score, for example, the end of the movie, or special scenes, and then you place the music differently, or?
I usually start from the beginning and just go, because I want to feel where it's going. Although, like you said, I might go to the end so I know where the destination of the score is, because when you write, like, it's like writing a symphony. You know, you need to know where it's going, and so and how to do your ebb and flow, your peaks and your valleys. You know, I always say and I'm going off the track now, but you know, if everything is climax and no foreplay, then there's you're not going to suck people in, you know. So you need to figure out how to pull back, where to put the valleys, where to the peaks, so that you keep people engaged, like a good story. But I was also say that talking about themes, well, I would say in terms of order of writing, of where I write. So like Apocalypse, for instance, I was so overwhelmed by the concept of writing all that music in the beginning, which was this giant, crazy action sequence of this pyramid collapsing, and all these people with these powers and so forth, and this apocalypse being transformed. And I was so overwhelmed by it that I skipped it. And I just started scoring the film after that point. And so I got to live in the world of the movie, score the entire thing. And so then when I was so familiar and so informed by my own themes, then I went back and scored the opening of the film.
Cool. That's very interesting.
Had I not written that theme, bum, 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 ba-da, you know, this thing, I wouldn't have known what to do in that opening, because when he's carted in there, when Apocalypse is brought into that pyramid, if I didn't have that theme, I wouldn't know how to fill that time with the music, you know. So it really pays off to have that theme. You know?
Cool. There's Alexei Kurkjian. It's very unpronounceable for me, but anyway, Alexei Kurkjian. I'd like to know, how was the experience on getting the baton after Michael's comment on this film? I don't know which.
On what?
I'd like. Sorry, because I have the wrong glasses here. I'd like to know. Yeah, that's right. That's true. I'd like to know, how was the experience on getting the baton en français, stick, you know, the thing for conducting the orchestra, after Michael Kamen,
Michael
Michael
Kamen.
Kamen.
on this
Yeah.
film.
Yes, that was when I did X-Men 2 and Michael Kamen did X-Men 1. So
He came in first. Oh, that just was
he did
came in first. That was just
right, got it.
okay. Sorry for that. That's one of my problems.
So I really didn't listen to what he did except for his theme, which I sort of did a derivative of his theme for the X-Men 2 theme. And I never felt that there was a second part or like I say, a B part to his theme. It's like you go to the A part, then you go to the B part, you come back to the A part again, which makes the A part even more satisfying. And so I expanded it to be, I think, more of a full theme. I don't know. It's always intimidating to walk into someone else's shoes, However, that first movie, behind the scenes, was such a shit show that when I walked in and did X-Men 2, because I wasn't involved in X-Men 1, I could compose chopsticks, and they would say great, because they were just embracing any of my involvement, because Brian didn't have me on the first film because I was off doing another movie, and it was it's a long story, but it was a very difficult process for everybody. So when I walked in, they were like, "Hey, thank God you're here." And so I in that regard, I was super intimidated by the size of the score I had to do for the first time. I'd never written a score that large before, and edit the movie. So it was how they say it, the best of times and the worst of times.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's another film where I laid out all the themes ahead of time, and it really saved my ass, because when I wrote the score, I had all my stuff ready to go. Yeah.
Cool. And you make your orchestrations?
Yeah, because as you know, in order to play the mock-up to the director, or to show him how the orchestra is going to sound, you have to write all the parts, right? Because and I also I just can't imagine going to a scoring session and wondering what the orchestrator did. because orchestration, you can have a melody, and as you know, the melody could sound 7 different ways depending on how it's orchestrated, and that melody could be made for Darth Vader or made for Bambi. It can be made, and so I have to know exactly what I'm going to get on the stage. So my orchestrators basically would deal with my wacky time signatures, because I compose to a click. I don't know what the hell time signature I'm in. They can figure that out, because I don't want to think about it. So because I'm not, even though I play an instrument way back, I wasn't really educated classically. So I didn't want to be inhibited by thinking about, am I in 2/4 or 6/8? I don't want to think about it. So I design the click track, of course. And as long as I'm on that click, I know someone else can figure it out later. So that was their main terrible task, was trying to figure all that out. And but in terms of all the parts, I would write all the parts out. Yeah, and they would decide some of the strings, where one passes off to the other, but even the strings I would delineate. I would determine, this is the cello playing this, not the viola, and things like that.
Okay. Oh, we have another question here.
I am John. John, I want to talk about another kind of movies, the dramas. In Valkyrie is a strong drama. The movie has an action side, but it is a drama. and you made a dance score, a beautiful score, and very intense. How was the experience of the soundtrack for Valkyrie? I don't know how to speak in English,
Yeah,
Valkyrie.
that's right. Well, I mean, it, Valkyrie was a movie where I wanted to always try to keep the human element going, but it was a caper, as we say, at the end of the day. And so there's a lot of music that was there just to keep the energy going. And so, but I'd written this emotional theme that is in the end titles. I tried any way I could to get that theme in the movie wherever I could. But a lot of the film is just very tense and fraught with moving parts that I couldn't really put that theme in as much as I wanted to. I don't know if you're talking about that theme, but I also talking about Valkyrie. It's one of those movies where I didn't want the music to be in the forefront all the time. I remember designing those scenes where in those big rooms with all the communication equipment, the tick 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 tick, all the tape is coming out. They read the messages and so forth.
Yeah.
That was what I wanted to hear. But once I started writing the score, it was like I couldn't ever stop it in that movie for some reasons. Every time I would stop the score, it's like once you've lit the fuse, you can't stop. But I didn't want it to be overdriven with music. So I intentionally wrote some of that music to be buried under the sound effects,
Cool.
So I remember when I walked into the final mix of the movie, which I always direct, but I hadn't been there for a couple hours. And the mixers had the music cranked over all those sound effects. And assuming that I was going to come in and say, just play the music all loud, Yeah. And so I told them, no. I said, the music needs to be buried, just woven in with those.
They never heard.
Yeah,
they never heard a composer asking like they never heard a composer.
But if you play music too loud, sometimes it won't work because it's not intended to be that way, And so they were surprised that I said, no, I this is all about those machines, So,
Right.
So I don't know, yeah, I mean the hardest part of any movie is the emotions, and so it was very hard to try to keep the emotional factor going in that film.
That's very cool, and because you put the storyteller, the story and the film in the first place, and all the egos have to be behind this. That's in my humble opinion, this is the most important thing. We have to tell the story. And guys, we are running out of time.
Wow.
1 hour.
I told you we needed 2 hours.
Yeah, we're gonna have more, and we're gonna have the next edition in Brazil. We're gonna make it presential or half presential and half virtual. We don't know what will happen, but we're gonna keep in touch for sure. And I'd love to talk to you again, and have to thank you very much for your participation. Was great. I learned a lot and had a lot of fun, and that's great for me. João?
Thank you again. A very nice, a very pleasant talk. You have a lot of things to share with us. And
lots of tall tales.
And we are looking forward to encounter again with you. In person.
In the future. That'd be great.
Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. I hope I didn't talk too fast.
No, it was okay. It was okay. And how is your back? Is okay? Is your back is better?
No, it's a little better talking about film music.
You need to relax. Take
All
care.
right.
Bye-bye.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.
So
Hello.
we are here, and the last interview, the last meeting, Kyle will put more composers here, and we will finish this.
A gente conseguiu falar mais lento, Marta?
No, we are talking English to finish, Zeneto.
Still in English?
Yeah, in English, and then we will now say goodbye
And
because
the audience will understand because we are speaking in English.
Yeah.
for sure. If not, goes to the Portuguese room.
Yeah,
Because
well,
we must say goodbye. It's the last interview. The concert of Ouro Preto's orchestra will be in Belo Horizonte, another channel. And then Musimagem Brazil would like to thank some people that really worked hard. In 2 months, we prepared this great festival, and I'd like to thank the Brazilian Bank's Cultural Center, Gislaine Tanaka, the manager, Adalberto, Fabio, Adriana, Bárbara, Pedro, thank you very much, CCBB Rio, Brasilia, São Paulo, all the team, Karina Souza, Luiz Otávio, Magali, our designer, Maurício Manzo, all the team of XR, Flávio, Meyerhofer, Caio, Antônio, Matheus, Daniel, Luciana, Marcelo, Omar, João. Here, Marta and Ricardo. Great translation in Portuguese, in English, in Spanish. Thank you very much. You are very professional and kind. Polly, the press. In Musimagem Brazil, Alberto Rosenblit, Felipe Radset is here, Fernando Aranha, Arlan, Alex Fiver, Mário da Silva, our team in Musimagem. I am President, Vice President Ricardo Leão, Rodrigo de Marcilac, Tim Rescala, Alexandre Guerra, Rafael Vicoli, João Batista Melo, our partner orchestra, Ouro Preto's orchestra, and our supporting partner also, Soundtrack Fest, Gorka, Robert Townsend Productions, Film Cité, Diego Navarro, Krakow Film Music Festival, Robert Piaskowski, and Movie Score Media. Everybody, thank you very much. Great festival, the first virtual, technological, music, everything.
Extra
and then I would
large.
like extra large coffee, milk, and I would like to invite.
Yeah, those credits sounded like those big movies, the credits of those big movies with half an hour of credits.
We have some minutes before Ouro Preto's concert start, and then Felipe had said, say something, please.
Thank you, Marcos. I would like to say good night to everybody, especially to our tonight's audience and to our special guest, John Ottman.
That's great.
Well, I really appreciate a lot his explanation. And I leave my congrats to him because of his extraordinary path in music for the cinema. And to our audience, I want to say thank you for joining us in the Musimagem Brazil Festival. Thank you all.
Great. Rafael Vicoli.
Thank you, my friends from the Musimagem Brazil. And I would like to thank everyone who watched the activities. See you next year.
João.
Thanks for all persons that watched the festival in this year, and we are looking forward to the next festival will be best than this. Always best.
Zé Neto.
Well, Thank you very much for all. And it was a challenge. We had a very tight schedule. We have many questions, unsolved questions that we have to solve along the process. And we learned a lot, and we believe each other, and we trust each other. And that's wonderful. That's priceless. I'm very happy, and I hope the guys who are watching here and the guys who will watch the replay are pleased too, because we had a lot of fun and we learned a lot, and we made new friends. We made new friends. That's fantastic.
It's true.
Thank you.
It's true. And everybody can visit our platform, play games, watching every activities that we did here. Was fantastic. Subscribe. And so this is the last interview before the concert. I will take my beer or red wine, I don't know yet, and
both.
watch the concert.
Okay.
That will be amazing. Thank you very much, Musimagem Brazil, this association, great association, everybody here. And in Dutch is tot volgende keer, or see you next year in our festival. Thank you.